Pearl Harbor is Burning is an excellent story of World War II. The book is written by Kathleen Kudlinski and illustrated by Ronald Himmler. Kathleen Kudlinski was born in Philadelphia on October 5th, 1950. She has a huge passion for nature and for kids. It took her 6 years and numerous rejections before she was able to publish her first book. Ronald Himmler was born in Cleveland, Ohio. He went to school at Cleveland Art Institute, majoring in paint and illustration. In 1972, he illustrated his first children's book, Glad Day and Other Classical Poems for Children. He is one of the few illustrators in the world to illustrate over 150 children's books. In Pearl Harbor is Drowning, Frank Hopkins was a young boy who recently moved to Hawaii from Maryland. His father was a journalist gathering information about Pearl Harbor and the Navy life there. He moved his family there for a year so his story could be authentic and full of real life experiences. Frank's mother was a hospital nurse. She was easygoing, but she loved her family and made sure they were safe and out of harm's way at all times. Frank found it difficult to make friends in Hawaii. There was a melting pot of races and cultures where he lived. Frank was a new kid on the block, so the other kids gave him a hard time. Frank met a young Japanese boy, Kenji, after he was being tormented one day, and they became really good friends. The boys shared the same interests. Frank's mother was not too fond of his newfound friend because he was not white or American. His mother introduced him to another boy named Weston, but he and Frank did not share the same interests. Frank was much more excited about his friendship with Kenji than with Weston. On December 7th, 1941, Frank and Kenji were at Kenji's clubhouse playing around when the most memorable day of their lives took place. As Kenji and Frank shared baseball cards and different stories, they were alarmed by an enormous amount of unfamiliar planes. Pearl Harbor was under attack by the Japanese. The boys watched as their quiet home was being attacked repeatedly by bombs and torpedoes. Frank was very educated on the ships as they were hit by the Japanese, he was able to call each ship by name. The boys watched in fright. They had never seen such a sight. Bomb after bomb destroyed ship after ship. Eventually, the attack that only lasted a little over half an hour was over. The Navy base was destroyed and almost every ship was badly damaged. While Frank wanted a closer look, he was convinced by Kenji to go home, who feared his family would be worried about him. As the boys headed home, they were greeted by their principal, who asked them to help cover the windows of the school where they attended, because the school was to be used as a facility to aid the wounded soldiers. The boys were hesitant at first, but then gave in and helped get the job done. After this was accomplished, the boys went home. Frank's mother greeted him and was glad that he was okay. She was dressed in her white nurse uniform and was about to go help out with whatever she could assist with in the harbor. She had to move quick. She had to move quickly to save lives. She had to quickly lose her envy and fear of Kenji and his Japanese family because she had to leave Frank with them since his dad was not around. Joyce Hopkins, Frank's mother, took Frank to Kenji's family's home and left him. Frank entered the house of the Japanese family and was immediately transformed as to what their life was like at home. The Japanese did things very different than his American home. Frank was not scared but was excited to learn and very accepting to their culture, values, and ways. He was very concerned about his mother and father being at the harbor taking care of others, but he knew he was in a safe place. On that Sunday night, Hawaii was to prepare for a blackout. The windows of the house had to be covered and there could be no light at night. When all of this was accomplished and the house was asleep, Frank and Kenji snuck out of the house to see what the blackout was like. They quickly were rounded up by American soldiers who escorted them back home and out of harm's way. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor was well planned and timed. They knew that on Sunday mornings the servicemen would be away from their posts and the Hawaiians would just be getting out of bed. In a short period of time, 2,300 Americans died, 960 were lost, and 1,100 more were wounded. 8 battleships were sunk along with 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 3 other ships. Japan was desperately trying to destroy America's naval power in the Pacific so they could infiltrate and take over. The Japanese were successful at bombing the ships, but did not bomb the oil tanks, ammunition storages, or submarines. They also did not locate the three aircraft carriers that were away from the harbor out at sea. Within 6 months of the attack, the harbor was restored, and the naval fleet in Pearl Harbor was stronger than ever before. This led to the winning of the war against Japan, with the conclusion of the dropping of two atomic bombs in Japan. Personally, Pearl Harbor is one of my favorite stories to hear about. I have watched the movie numerous times and enjoyed it. History is so interesting, and I love watching and reading about it. The America that we know today has been greatly influenced by the attack on Pearl Harbor and World War II. America had just came out of the Great Depression, which had our economy in a huge slump. Although it was back on the rise, it still had a long way to go. Pearl Harbor was the time for America to make a statement to the world that we were very powerful and unafraid to take charge and stop any torment that was meant to harm the United States of America. It's amazing of how an ordinary day can turn out to be the worst day in such an instant. I can only imagine what really happened at Pearl Harbor. The lives lost, the amount of the attack, the mass casualties is very unbelievable. Also, the loss of ships and equipment is devastating. This, however, was just a test to see how strong America really is and how we are able to take care of our own business. America was able to construct two atomic bombs that virtually ended the war with Japan. They are still suffering from those bombs today. This book, Pearl Harbor is Burning, is a good read to describe and depict life in Hawaii at the time and how quickly it changed. Although there was a huge number of different people there, they all came together as one during the attack to take back control of their home and revive their land. This story is also about an awesome interracial friendship that thrived, and even in the face of despair and adversity, they were able to overcome and see the greater picture that we so desperately need in the world today and in America, which is unity.